Hi, I'm Kitty Feldy of 89.3 KPCC, and this is the Book Club of the Air for young adults, and we are talking about a book that is also a film. It is The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants by Brashares, and my trio of young women to talk about it. We thought it was appropriate to have ladies talking about this particular book. Katie Fleeman, who's in the 8th grade at Paul Revere Charter Middle School. Caitlin York, who is in the 7th grade at the Chandler School in Pasadena, and Joe Kinney, who's in the 7th grade at Marshall Fundamental School in Pasadena. And you guys are all in what, a mother-daughter book club?
Yeah.
For how long? How long have you been doing that?
Well, 2 years.
I was in 5th grade, so
yeah, 3 years.
3 years.
3 years.
We're about to start our 4th.
So is it like in this book where your mothers were friends before you guys were?
Yeah.
Well, actually, my mom decided to get some friends together, and we just started a book club. She started reading books about it and inspired her.
So what kinds of books have you done so far?
We've done a variety. We've done really serious books.
Like
we've done some
historical
playful
fiction.
Books.
Like a lot of that.
We've read everything from like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory to we've read things like Speak and
Of Nightingales That Weep.
Oh.
See what our first book was Island of the Blue Dolphins.
Yeah.
And our most recent one was
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Wow, that is a different. Deliberately, I mean, it's like all over the galaxy as far as those books
We actually
go.
also discussed the 3rd Traveling Pants book. So.
Oh, all right. Well, then you guys are way ahead of us. Well, let's start with the first one. Who wants to give the basic plot description of what's the book about?
I will.
All right. Why don't you start us off, Katie?
Okay, it's about there are these 4 girls, and they're all friends. They've been friends since, well, before they were born, because their moms were all friends from this class. And so this is going to be their first summer apart, and they're going all over the world. One girl, Lena, is going to Greece. There's a girl who's going, they live in Washington. There's another girl who's going to Baja California. Then there's another girl who's going to go visit her dad. I think he lives in New York or South Carolina, as close.
East Coast, South Carolina.
And then there's one girl who's staying. So they, the girl, Carmen, she's the one who's going to visit her dad. She found this pair of pants in this thrift store, and she just bought them because they were really cheap, and she just had money to burn or something, I guess. So they're just kind of sitting, dying in her closet, and then all her friends come over, and they're all like, hey, can I have these pants? So they try them on, and it turns out it fits them all, and it looks really good on all of them.
Which, of course, happens in real life all the time.
Of course.
Yeah.
And so they start this little thing where they're like, so they have these pants, and they just mail it to each other over the summer with letters and things like that. And then it's just all about their stories about what happens during their summer. Like the girl in Greece, she's visiting her grandparents. And then it's just they've all got their own little stories.
Well, let's let Caitlin and Joe tell us who the characters are. Describe the girls, how different they are. Joe?
Well, you can really tell that it makes you wonder that if they met now, because they're all so different. Lena is shy and artistic. Tibby is the rebel. She's very judgmental. She doesn't care what other people think. Carmen is very deep. She's very emotional. She really cares about all of her friends. And then Bridget is very athletic and very energetic.
A lot of energy.
Well, and she's also kind of on the edge, Bridget is.
Yeah.
Right. She's had a bad history past.
It's like nervous energy, kind of. She's just going fast so that she doesn't have to have the past catch up with her.
Her mom's death catch up with her because her mom died.
Well, let's start with, you guys were kidding a little before about who you identified most with. Who do you identify with, Joe?
Well, each character is so specific that it's really hard to define yourself into one. You can take parts of yourself and divide it up into all 4 of them, but I think I'm most like Tibby because I'm rebellious.
Oh, okay. All right. How about you, Caitlin?
I'm probably most like Carmen because I care about my friends a lot, and I care that we stick together. And I also have sometimes I know what I want, and I set my way, and sometimes it results in a bad temper. But
so Carmen's it for you.
Yeah.
How about you, Katie?
I'm probably a little bit of Carmen and Tippie, kind of. I don't know. Like I also care a lot about my friends, kind of their personal psychiatrist a little bit sometimes, it seems like. And then also, like, there was a lot of things about Tibby where she makes her own little movies, and my friends and I make these stupid little movies together.
That's stupid.
Well, they're not
They're
stupid.
just
No,
early work is the way you describe them.
Yeah, singing karaoke and stuff. And I don't know, just kind of like Joe was saying, you're a mixture of all of them, so it's kind of hard to pin it down.
You know, how accurate do you think the depiction of the friendship is? I mean, how often does it happen that you have 3 really good friends who you stay with for most of your life?
I can kind of relate, because I have one really good friend that was, my parents were friends with her parents before we were born, and we've stuck together a lot. She's 2 years older than me, actually, so that's
unusual that you stay friends, because people mature at different levels.
Yeah, so it's hard sometimes, but
I think it's believable that there are somebody who have about 3 different friends, but it's just how different they are that is the most surprising. But
a literary device, then, you think? This
it's just the fact that they're all so different. I mean, I guess opposites attract.
Yeah, and it's really fun to put yourself in your shoes and try and fit your friends into their personalities. Yeah. So it's really cool if they were all friends like that.
This is, it's written in different points of view. I mean, it sort of starts off first person and then it goes to third person. I mean, talk a little bit about the writing style, about this, and shifting. It shifts from what's going on in Greece to what's going on in Baja to what's going on in, I guess, Maryland to South Carolina.
Yeah. It's actually sometimes confusing. Like, sometimes I would go from one girl, she'd be talking about her trip, and then it would switch to another, and I'd just skip over a couple more pages and find where it left off on the next girl. So I just read it all through, and then.
Really? That's so interesting.
I didn't do that. I kind of like the balance of that, kind of about how it just shifts from like one person to the next, so you kind of get it. Like, instead of like, if it was like that, you know, it would seem like this one story happens and then another one starts, but this way it's kind of more chronological, so you can kind of get how their lives are paralleling.
It also doesn't let you focus on one person for a long time.
You get bored.
Exactly. You can't really analyze it so much. So it's like real life. You don't know what's going to happen next. You can't think everything through beforehand.
Do you think that's written that way because people's attention spans are much shorter today than
Yeah, like the television and everything. I mean, just.
I also liked how lots of times between the different characters they'd have a letter written to them or something, so that was just kind of like a little entryway into it, so you kind of knew that,
And different graphics too, because they used the handwriting in the letters and things. That was helpful as well, you think?
And I really liked the quotes at the beginning. Every single chapter there was a quote.
And how a lot of the quotes were from the characters in the book.
And then there were just
they ranged from stars to people that you're just meeting.
Yeah.
Like Tibby's boss, Duncan, who's just really uptight.
And then
Skeletor.
Boss,
Skeletor. Life
girlfriend.
is like,
She's like, life is like, whatever.
Really deep character.
It also helps you like find like some of the characters that were mentioned with quotes. You didn't really get to find out that much about them, so it really helped you like develop their character in your mind, just to see how, like, what their personality was like.
I'm confused. So how did they do that? How did you do that?
Well, because like it has like life is so whatever. I mean, it just makes you see that her attention span is really short, and she's really valid girl.
And then also everything is so biased because you're always hearing it from whoever's story point it is. When you hear the quotes, or when the sisterhood is all discussing it at the end, you really think maybe this isn't the whole story because you're just listening to one person.
And then they also kind of like lead the way to where the chapter is going. So, you know, sometimes if they're kind of being cynical, it'll start off with kind of a cynical quote. But then as they kind of grow and mature more, then they get these deeper, more mature quotes in.
It's so funny listening to you guys talk about the book, because you guys are talking exactly the way the book is written. You know, it's kind of one conversation, and here they all, and they're all adding information. It's really, you guys work really well together.
You're in a mood.
I can tell you're in the zone here. Well, let's jump ahead. So I haven't read the second and third books. How do they hold together compared to the first one?
They're all different. They've got their different stories. You can they
don't give it away, but
but they like reference to the years. They don't talk about the school years, but they do reference. You know, at the beginning they just kind of, you can tell how they've changed over the year, but they still keep their same personality.
And each book kind of has a theme. Like the first book is just getting to know. It's like an introduction. It's getting to know the girls, their stories, what their personalities are like, and how they mature over the course of all the series. Like the second one is about like their mothers and their conflicts with their moms, and which you can really relate to as a girl.
And then the third one is about staying together before they leave for college.
Oh, okay.
So it kind of sums up what's been going on.
And how accurate, I mean, not say accurate, how true to life. I mean, sometimes things you go, oh, I don't know if that's really
sometimes
realistic.
It's a little bit commercial. Like it's friendship together and apart. It's just a little bit hard to understand because when my friends go away, I don't write letters to them every single day.
You don't?
I do. I read it. I was kind of making a movie in my head, thinking this would be a great movie starring me and my friends.
Of course, starring us.
Well, darn, they made the movie, but they didn't ask you.
No.
I feel so lonely.
I bet you do. It's terrible. Well, who's seen the movie?
They did.
All of you guys have.
No, I haven't.
You haven't yet.
Because I was talking to my friend about it, and she was talking about one of the storylines. I'm like, no, that's not what happened.
They change it.
Yeah.
They also
Compared to some books, they stay true, but they change it.
Yeah. What really bugs me is when I really like the cover, like shown here, like the green one with the pants on it, and then they always change the covers to fit the movie. Like the movie poster is on the cover now. It just isn't as true to the book. It's more true to the movie, and it builds a picture in your head that you just don't.
I know, you think, I always remember, what was the book? A Herman Wouk book, War and Remembrance. And in my head, you know, I had this one actor in mind when I was, you know, Brian Keith, who played the father on Family Affair 100 million years ago. And he was in the Parent Trap, the original Parent Trap, playing the dad, because I always thought he was very attractive. So I had him in my mind. And then they cast Robert Mitchum, and it was like, no, that's not him. That's not him.
There's also if you see a movie first, you have this image of your mind what it's supposed to be. So if you read the book first, you can really know how they're messing with it and what it should be like.
Well, how was the casting then for the film compared to what you had in mind?
Well,
I thought that
I saw one of the pictures, and like I know that like the guy who played Brian was not how I imagined him.
They made Eric in the movie is blonde, and in the story, Eric is supposed to be half Mexican, from Baja California. So that was kind of strange.
Yeah,
and Brian, they changed his ethnicity.
Brian, he's Asian, and the book he's supposed to be these geeky
albino
skin as white as skim milk, she described, and the mossy braces and stuff.
Ew.
What about the girls? Were they close?
They were pretty close.
They were pretty good casting.
Yeah. Also, Bridget, her hair, it's obviously kind of bleached in the movie.
Really?
Because she still has like really dark roots, and in the book she's supposed to have the hair the color of peeled bananas, so it's like really light and really like vibrant. Not just like the commercial blonde that you see these.
Very interesting. But they didn't do a very good job on her roots.
The roots, of course.
You'd think you spent all the money on that movie.
It makes such a big deal out of her beautiful blonde hair.
I know, and then it's not very developed in the movie.
She's kind of what they call an unreliable narrator. Have you guys talked about that in book clubs at all? It's where you have a character you don't really quite trust what they're saying because you may think they're crazy or depressed or something like that. I mean, that sort of describes what Bee's going through.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you see that in the way that she describes what's going on? Can you tell when she starts losing it as you're reading?
Well, as she becomes more and more obsessed with one thing, you realize that she's so focused. She's what is it? Ruthless to the point of not ruthless. Determined to the point of recklessness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what her.
Her
psychologist said. Yeah, after her mom died, they put her through therapy.
Yeah.
So she actually mentions in a letter to one of her friends, "I'm going insane. I want Eric," and everything. And so that's kind of the peak when you start thinking, well, this is a little bit reckless.
It also kind of shows how much they trust her friends, because as soon as they all start to separate and they're not seeing each other, they're kind of missing them and wondering what they would do, and really you see how much they rely on each other.
Bridget's also, you know, she's totally infatuated with Eric to a point that's really dangerous for her. And I'm just, do you identify with that emotion? Do you know people who are really that kind of boy crazy girl who are just like getting themselves into trouble? You can just tell, he's like, look out, look out.
Yeah.
Not at your schools, of course. You guys
Our schools are perfect, of course.
Yes.
Of course. Of course.
Can't you tell?
I can. That's why none of you identify with Bridget, I could tell. I identify with Tibby, too.
I identify as with a friend trying to keep their other friends out from being completely boy crazy.
Yeah.
It's a tough struggle. I remember my mother, because I had a major crush on Sean Quinn when I was in 8th grade. And all I could do was talk about him. And one time my mother had said, I just hate boy crazy girls. You know, it's like I never talked to her about boys ever again in my entire life. So I was so shut down. But there is that time, though, which you really go through those emotions, where it's just suddenly, that's the person. So you know some people like that in school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Bridget wasn't necessarily out of the wild.
She was just kind of actually a little more to the extreme, I think, just a bit more.
Just as
that was the thing with all the characters, where they were a little examinated, just a little bit to define them some more.
Like, if I was mad at my dad, I wouldn't throw a rock to his window. Of course.
The whole thing that she had a hard time saying that she was mad to her father.
That was pretty realistic, because I can understand not being able to communicate with somebody that you're not exactly as close as you want to be to. Mm-hmm. Like, she never saw her dad, so how would you be able to know what he would like do afterwards?
Yeah, because she's afraid he won't love her anymore if she says something that could hurt him, I guess. If she gets mad at him, that was the whole thing. Yeah. So that rang true also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Tibby story is, she has the toughest summer. She has the worst summer, all the way around. Everybody else is going someplace exotic, and she's stuck at home working at this horrible drugstore.
Yeah. The thing with her, like, that I found a feeling was that she had all these, like, younger siblings, and it's just like everybody can kind of relate to that, because I mean, I have a younger sibling, but younger, I've got a lot of really younger cousins, so I know they can get kind of crazy sometimes.
Yeah. And it's also through all of the girls' stories, they all have a point where they feel like they're invisible. Mm-hmm. Like with Tibby, she feels invisible through her parents, and Carmen, she feels invisible through Dad's new family. Mm. And Lena feels invisible to, like, well, actually, it's almost like she's too visible, like, out there, and it's too visible, and she just wants to be invisible. Mm-hmm. And the same with Bridget, like, when she gets kind of depressed, everybody keeps coming to her, and she's like, just go away, I don't want you guys to come.
I hadn't thought about that. That's a great thing, the theme of wanting to be, or actually either wanting to or not want to be invisible. Lena has the best summer.
Yeah.
I would like to go to Greece for the summer.
Yeah. Actually, my class just went on a trip to Greece. I didn't get to go.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
What did they say?
Yeah, I like to be.
Oh, man.
And so they all came back with, like, all these amazing stories. And I was like, I went to Universal Studios.
Has anybody traveled overseas? Have you guys?
Actually, we're going on another class trip to France next year, which I get to go to.
That would be very cool.
Yeah.
That would be very cool. I didn't travel until I was overseas, till I was out of high school, so other people have rich parents who take them to exotic places every summer, so, or have relatives. I guess that's the key, is you have to have relatives so you can stay with them where it's cheap. Yeah. But did you get a feeling for what living in Greece might be like from her descriptions?
There were a lot of really nice color descriptions with the village. Like, it was the egg yolk yellow and brilliant blue and stuff.
You could also kind of get that even though they were on Greece, they were actually kind of more of a secluded part of Greece. Like, it was just one of those places where you just go and you're just kind of calm and peaceful, and it's just kind of small. Like, I think they even said there was no internet access or something.
Yeah.
Well, I think that they get it at some point because they reference to that later in a later book, but it's just kind of that set up the atmosphere where everybody knows each other. And it's like something you can't get in Los Angeles.
And then Lena really talks a lot about feeling different because she's American and everybody else is speaking Greek. Yeah. And that's what I can relate with because I've never been in Greece.
Being invisible also, I mean, just not being able to connect with other people.
I kept wanting her to learn a little Greek. It's not that hard to learn some Greek.
Well, I mean, then she wanted to speak Greek to her Bobby, but she realized that they had some other form of language going on
I
already.
liked that whole part, how they were like, we have our conversations in silence. It's just, that was cool.
It's different from the hectic American theme. I mean, like everybody always has something to do when their schedules are packed. And
Yeah, I liked that relationship she had with her grandparents because, as you say, they didn't have language in common, and they were in a weird place where time didn't really matter. But yeah, but you really got a sense of him as a character, I think, in the book.
Yeah, because he was so different, and she spent a lot of time, like, not really discussing what he said, but thinking about thinking about the way she wanted him to be. But in fact, if he had been that way, very talkative, very inquisitory, she probably wouldn't have liked him as much because their character traits were very, very similar.
I liked the thing how they were like talking about the grandparents, how she was comparing it to kids who never have known their real parents, how you always envision them being really, really great, like in Annie, how they've got that whole song about it. And then, but sometimes, so she thought she had never met her grandparents, so she thought they were really, really great, you know, and she had all these entire stories thought up, but when she meets them, they're just like, oh, you're just like anybody's grandparents.
Expectations of them.
Yeah, sometimes you overestimate what your first impression is going to be or something, and then it ends up being pretty bad.
Well, Carmen has to deal with new family members she wasn't expecting either. How does the stepmother come across as a caricature, or do you think she was?
I think she's a little bit of a caricature, but it's also through Carmen's mind. She sees this one aspect of this like perfect Martha Stewart type person, pre of course her stalk, but she just sees this image and she just blocks her mind completely of like any other traits she might have. So she just wants to think, because she wants to think negatively of her, so she just finds this one thing that she just doesn't like. And that's the way she sees the whole family. But then at the end, she starts seeing them in a different light. She's kind of opening her mind a little bit, seeing, oh, this isn't the only part I can see of them. There's more to them than that.
Yeah.
Does she eventually date Paul in the later books?
No.
No.
They're just like
asking.
There's some other things.
All right, I'll read that. Talk about Tibby's relationship with the young woman she meets.
With Bailey?
Yeah, Bailey. Talk about Bailey.
I like Bailey.
She's like mini-me of Tibby.
The one thing about Bailey is I think that she's a little too perfect of a character.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just like, you know, that you want to make, she's somebody you like, but I think that that's worked a little too hard.
She's like overly confident.
Yeah, she's just perfect.
And that's part of her character, but it's just really hard to believe sometimes.
Yes.
We don't know any Baileys. We don't know any of these
No,
perfect
you
little
don't.
midget people who are, especially people who are dealing with death.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
their own death.
if you ever look at books where you've got people, when you've got lots of books have young children dying and they're always these little angels. It's just, it's like we watched Uncle Tom's Cabin in history, and there was the perfect little angel child who died. It's just, that's always, it's just kind of a cliche.
Bailey is kind of different, so I think that was nice to find a change.
Is this like anything else you've ever read? Either by style or characters or theme or...
It kind of reminded me of even the Meg Cabot books for some
I was just
reason.
about to say that. Really?
It just reminded me.
There's a lot of, in the Meg Cabot book, there's lots and lots of brand dropping, and like you can relate to everything because it's also modern. But with this, it's not the fact that she's using specific names. It's like everyone can connect to them because they're realistic characters. They're going through semi-realistic events.
And they're kind of our age.
Right.
No. Well, when you say brand, sometimes I find that books that I thought were really cool when I was your age, I pick them up again and it's like, this is so dated. Do you think this book will stand up? If you're, in another 30 years, you'll pick this up. Do you think it'll stand up? Or?
It might.
It'll still be a good story, but it'll seem older. You'll realize, oh, now
why did I care about
different.
this?
Right.
Yeah, like it says like cargo pants, and like it kind of sounds like loafers or something from.
Yeah, I mean, jeans may not even be in style.
Yeah, jeans or like Rice Krispies and stuff.
It's just kind of like a couple of the Beverly Cleary books are really good, but if you read them, they're really dated. They're good stories, but you kind of read them and you're like, well, this kind of sounds old.
Yeah. And it seems to me that I find that that with the book club, kids are less patient with books that are older, that are dated. In other words, you immediately pick it up that it's not of your era, and therefore, why should I care?
Yeah.
You know, it just doesn't
That's
relate.
It's also like about talking about history. Like, why should I study history? Because you don't want to repeat history, or you want to learn from your mistakes.
There's
and
some
things like literature. You want to be able to become great writers or something, and you have to read the classics like Tom Sawyer or something.
Because I like reading books that are older, but they sound normal. Like
Animal Farm.
Yeah, like Animal Farm. Like Animal Farm. Like I read a couple George Orwell books and a couple other older books like that. But that it was written in 1949. I think it was 1949. But it's still, you can.
Timeless.
Yeah, and the language, since it's also science fiction, it's not like they talk about things that can be dated easily.
So I guess the motto is read it now before it becomes really dated. Okay, so we have at least 3 thumbs up, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, the book is called Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants by Brashares. And we want to thank our trio today who came in to talk to us. Joe Kinney from Marshall Fundamental School in Pasadena, Caitlin York from Chandler School in Pasadena, and Katie Fleeman, who is out at Paul Revere Charter Middle School in Brownwood. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. And join us next month for the next edition of the Book Club of the Year for Young Adults. And if you want to see us, we're downtown at the library, downtown Los Angeles, in the Children's Reading Room, first Wednesday of the month, about 4 o'clock. So you can come on down and watch television being made. Have a good day.